Good afternoon. This is Wednesday evening prayer reflection on April 28th, and I will be dealing with Luke chapter 6, verse 27 to 38, and we will be talking about loving our enemies. So Jesus told us, love your enemies. Can anything be as countercultural as this? When we are hurting, especially, our entire being is sort of like screaming against this thinking, is it even possible to love our enemies? Especially when the enemy keeps oppressing or hurting us. So let us try to imagine what must have been going on in the minds of Jesus' listeners. Did they rebel in their hearts against it? I suppose so. So whatever strong resistance they might have had, I am thinking that we have it too. Of course, in our minds, the worse the offense is, the harder it is to imagine loving our enemy. So Jesus here provides us with a reasoning for this theory of loving your enemies. If you love those who love you, then what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. There's nothing special about that if sinners can also do that. So in other words, this is not countercultural. Everybody does that. But this is rather the way you should walk in, as Jesus puts it. Love your enemies. Do good. Lend. Sort of give money. If they ask you, would you give me money? Just give money. Expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. You will be called the children of the Most High, for He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. I sort of somehow was thinking, if God is kind to ungrateful, which we all are, how grateful are we for the things that God has placed into our lives, for being born in a place you were born into, for not have had maybe the kinds of suffering that other people in the other parts of the world do have. How grateful are we? How do we ever show that we are grateful? And so maybe that's why I say that we are all in this category, that God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. So, and then he adds, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. And this is countercultural. I would say that it is very hard to be countercultural. I will explain. I was born in Africa, so in my Christian African upbringing, there was this notion of honor and shame system. So it means you do something good, then you are appraised. You say, oh, good, you did good. But if you do something bad, according to society, then you bringing shame to your family, to your group, and to your tribe, to your clan. You bring shame. So there are good things about that. Don't get me wrong. There are really some good things about that. But there are also some real difficulties with such thinking, especially when it clashes with one Christian beliefs. I hope I can give a good example. For example, it takes a person of strong character to stand your ground with regards to your family, or your group, or your clan, or your tribal or ethnic group, if that is what is regarded to you as the very best, and it's your value, it's a Christian value, and maybe your entire society does not view that as a value. So if, for example, we are saying you need to love your enemies, and that does not mean I will go out and be friendly to them, but I won't do anything terrible to them either. But what if in that parts of the world they are saying everything is allowed. If they do something bad to our family, oh, we are also to do the same thing to them. What if my value does not agree that we are to go on a hunt with a mob to go and do bad things to the other family just because the two families have been in a feud for 400 years? I don't feel that I should be doing that. And then if I refuse, then that cultural system of saying honor and shame, if you refuse to be part of that, then you would be bringing shame to your family, to your clan, or to your ethnic tribe. And so that's how it clashes. If I believe I am now a Christian, so that means I cannot engage in any activities that will bring harm to anybody else, whether that person is considered by their entire tribe as an enemy. If that person has not done anything to me, if that person is not being a direct threat to me, why would I want to go and attack them? But if that entire thinking is to say, if you don't do it, then you're bringing shame to your family, then I rather disagree with my family. So, of course, in some cultures, it's even very serious that you could die. Some people, if you become a Christian and convert from your other religion, then the other people think it's a very big threat to their family, and then you can actually get killed. So it's very, very serious. So in this context, I would say that some people consider this, if Jesus says love your enemies, is it just you saying I will try not to harm my enemy? That's my way of loving it. I may not like them, but I will love them my own way, and I will not necessarily take the big step to go and engage them, but I will not do either something that will go out of my way to harm them. So maybe in some people's cultures they may say this is a very personal responsibility, and but in many other cultures they might say no person is an island. What you decide is also has to include an entire family, an entire group. And so to me, I'm convinced that it is mostly a family affair. If you decide to go your own way, yes, you are being a sort of loud witness to your entire family, to your entire group, that the way to go is this way, even if they disagree with you. I'm still convinced that when Jesus says love your enemies, it involves all of us, although we have a responsibility as individuals to take it upon ourselves to love our enemies. So Jesus instructs us. St. Augustine of Hippo, the first century, said, our hearts are restless until they rest in God. So most often we are afraid to go where it hurts, but it is necessary if we want to be healed. Sometimes we need to face the hard truth in our lives and not dance around it. For example, doctors have to clean the wounds and apply medicine so it can heal. So one way of loving our enemies is to try to walk in their shoes in our minds. How can we understand each other if we have not walked in each other's shoes? And this was mentioned by a contemporary Dominican nun, Margaret Ormond. It is, if we can't walk in each other's shoes, then it means that it is very difficult for us to imagine ourselves with that kind of suffering. Well, I found out that when you are comfortable or you live well it is hard to imagine walking in someone else's who is suffering, or someone who's oppressed, to walk in their shoes, because it is the suffering that needs to be experienced, to be known. And Jesus' instruction to love our enemies is very simple, but also it does not tell us to go beyond and maybe seek reconciliation. It just says, love your enemies. That's all it says. But I would say that it puts us at a greater advantage to begin even thinking, should I be pursuing this? Or is it even in the best interest of everybody that things stay the way they are? After the war that led to a genocide, 1994, I experienced injustice, torture, and discrimination, and I can say that it hurts a lot. But I felt that I can understand the sufferings of others, what the Rohingya people of Myanmar are going through right now. There's a genocide that is actually happening against them right now, and how it would be hard for them to love their persecutors. And also, I understood how it would be hard for people like the natives and the Aborigines or the Armenians who also experienced the genocide to live amongst the people that tried to wipe out their families. So these are all real realities of our world, and each person uses his or her own lenses as we look at these tragedies and how we expect each other to behave in the way forward. Some, for example, would say, well, you should just submit to the authorities and forget all the atrocities of these unforgettable battles, and then things should be fine. And that sounds simplistic, but is that a good and considerate solution? Who does it profit? And generally, I always ask myself, we don't learn from our past, do we? And in the midst of all this mess, and there's this voice of Christ that becomes even more clearer and clearer, that says, love your enemies. So could this be an antidote to all our anxieties that has just exponentially, grown out of proportion, and the anxieties of our lives and the ills that we have introduced to our societies? So what could Jesus possibly be suggesting we do by loving our enemies? That might be $1 million question, but those who have surrendered to their wills to Christ will understand. Perhaps for one person it will be something totally different than the other, but it may just mean to be merciful and be considerate always, and bring and respect the dignity of others. Yes, it sounds hard to love our enemies, but if you haven't had enemies, it might be helpful to ask those who have, so you can learn the intensity of this proposition. When someone tells you love your enemies, it might seem simplistic, but if someone has experienced really what an enemy means, and you have people who have killed each other, people who have lost families because of serious disagreements and stuff. There are a lot of people who have had serious issues that makes you understand how really powerful and profound it is for Jesus to tell us, love your enemies. And he himself forgave those who were putting him on a cross. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Perhaps if Jesus thinks we can do it, it means we can do it. Perhaps we need to open our hearts to God's grace and truth through the power of the Holy Spirit, so we can see exactly what Jesus wants us to see, so we can curb the cycle of violence, not repeat it and not learn from the past, from our history. We need to be discount cultural, if we are to expect change. Thank you.